Have you ever felt that quiet warning in your stomach? The sense that something is off in your relationship, especially when it comes to closeness, trust, and intimacy? If you have ever been involved with a narcissistic person, then you may know that feeling very well. It is confusing, it is heavy, and it usually gets stronger before you fully understand why. In this video, we are going to walk through 10 disturbing patterns narcissists can show in relationships and intimate situations, and we are going to look at why these behaviors can be so damaging. Their way of relating to people is often not normal, not healthy, and not based on real care. It is usually based on control, ego, and the need to feed something inside themselves that is never truly satisfied. That is why these patterns matter. They can leave someone feeling used, lonely, unsure of themselves, and deeply unsettled without always knowing how it happened. So stay with this all the way through, because some of these signs are subtle at first, while others only make sense when you step back and see the bigger picture. Once you notice the pattern, you cannot unsee it, and that awareness can help you protect yourself before the damage goes even deeper. Sometimes the most dangerous part is not what they show in public, but what they hide in private. And that is where this often begins. One common pattern is the hidden side they work so hard to cover. Narcissists are often very skilled at hiding who they truly are, especially when it comes to private desires, personal habits, and things they know would damage the image they present to the world. On the outside, they may look respectful, calm, responsible, even morally strong. They can seem stable. They can sound sincere. They can say all the right things and make people believe they are safe, grounded, and trustworthy. But behind that polished surface, there may be a completely different reality. Their private interests can be far more unusual, more secretive, and sometimes more disturbing than anyone expects. The important thing is not just that they hide these things, it is how carefully they hide them. They may keep this second life locked away for months or even years, only revealing pieces when it serves them or when they feel they can still control how others react. They often talk about values, self-control, or how different they are from other people. They may even describe themselves as pure, loyal, or deeply principled, but many times that image is part of the act. It is a screen. It is a costume. And behind closed doors, their choices may look nothing like the person they pretend to be. That split between public image and private behavior is not random. It helps them protect their reputation, keep influence over others, and avoid being fully seen until someone is already emotionally trapped. Another pattern is their endless need for validation, and not from just one person. Narcissists usually do not feel secure from the inside, so they keep searching for attention from the outside. They need praise, they need admiration, they need proof that they matter, and one source is almost never enough. That is why many of them keep multiple streams of validation going at the same time. They may flirt constantly, chase attention in quiet ways, seek excitement from strangers, or create situations where they can collect admiration with little effort. Even when they act like ordinary, family-centered, dependable people, they may be living a second emotional life under the surface, one built around attention, secrecy, and quick ego boosts. This is important to understand because their hunger for validation rarely settles down. It keeps moving, it keeps reaching, it keeps demanding more, and if one person stops feeding it, they often look elsewhere without much guilt. They may act as if they simply enjoy connection, but what they are often chasing is the rush of being wanted, praised, desired, or noticed. It is not really about building something real. It is about keeping their self-image inflated. And when that image starts to dip, they can become restless fast. Watch this closely because the next part connects to it in a very clear way. And once you see that link, a lot of their behavior starts making more sense. Narcissists also tend to have a constant hunger for novelty. For them, ordinary emotional closeness is often not enough for long. Even when something is good, stable, and satisfying, they get bored with it quickly because what they truly crave is stimulation. They want variety, they want intensity, they want the feeling of something new, something different, something that gives them another hit of excitement. This is not just a random preference, it reflects how they often see other people. Instead of viewing others as full human beings with feelings, limits, and needs, they may treat them more like objects that exist to provide pleasure, admiration, or entertainment. That mindset is dangerous because it weakens empathy and makes it easier for them to cross lines. They may push limits, test boundaries, or seek more extreme experiences simply because ordinary connection no longer gives them enough emotional charge. And when someone is always chasing the next thrill, the people around them often end up feeling like they are never enough, even when they have done nothing wrong. That is one of the cruelest effects of this pattern. It creates confusion. It creates self-doubt. It makes a partner think they have to keep changing, keep performing, keep proving their worth just to hold the narcissist's attention. But the truth is much darker. The problem is not that the partner lacks value. The problem is that the narcissist's appetite is built in a way that keeps rejecting peace and reaching for more. That brings us to another pattern, and it is their deep dislike of boredom and routine. For a narcissist, boredom feels almost unbearable. It can make them restless, irritated, and quick to pull away from people or situations that no longer feel exciting. Even if they are with someone attractive, caring, and emotionally available, they often still end up wanting something else. Not because the relationship is lacking, but because their inner emptiness keeps demanding stimulation. They are rarely content with what they already have. They keep scanning the horizon for the next distraction, the next thrill, the next person, the next fantasy, the next way to escape that dull feeling inside. This makes them very hard to satisfy because their dissatisfaction is not really about the relationship in front of them. It comes from within. But instead of admitting that, they often blame former partners. They may say their ex was boring, cold, too limited, too predictable, or unwilling to try new things. Many times, that story is deeply unfair. It is simply a way to shift responsibility and avoid facing the truth that they themselves are never settled for long. Once the excitement fades, they often begin devaluing the person who once meant everything to them. That switch can be shocking. One moment they seem intensely interested, and the next they act distant, unimpressed, or emotionally gone. And if you have seen that shift before, keep listening, because the next behavior explains why intimacy with them can feel strangely empty even when it looks close on the surface. A major sign is the lack of real emotional intimacy. With a narcissist, physical closeness is often not about mutual care, shared warmth, or emotional bonding. It can feel intimate on the surface, but underneath, it may be centered almost entirely on their own needs. Once they feel satisfied, they often pull away quickly. The warmth disappears, the emotional presence fades. They may become cold, distracted, detached, or suddenly unavailable. There is little desire to stay close, talk, comfort, or deepen the connection afterward because for them, the moment was never truly about building something shared. It was about taking what they needed. This pattern usually goes beyond intimate moments and spills into the relationship as a whole. They may struggle to create deep, lasting bonds because they do not naturally relate as equal partners. They often relate through use, control, and self-focus. That is why being with them can feel so confusing. You may have moments that look passionate or close, but afterward you are left with emotional emptiness instead of connection. You may feel unseen even while being physically near them. That push and pull can leave a person exhausted, always reaching for a level of love or safety that never fully arrives. And this is where many people start blaming themselves, which is exactly what should not happen. If several of these patterns show up together, what you are seeing may not be normal relationship struggle. It may be a repeating structure of manipulation, distance, and control that is much more serious than it first appears. These behaviors rarely appear one by one in a neat order. More often, they overlap and strengthen each other. A narcissist may hide major parts of themselves, chase outside validation, get bored quickly, avoid genuine closeness, and then blame others for the emotional mess they create. That combination can leave a partner feeling deeply off balance. One week, everything seems warm, exciting, and full of promise. The next week, the same person feels cold, distant, irritated, or uninterested. This emotional whiplash is not always accidental. Sometimes it becomes part of how they keep people uncertain. If you are confused, you are easier to control. If you are always trying to figure out where you stand, you spend less time questioning what they are doing. It is important to say that seeing one sign alone does not automatically mean someone is a narcissist. People can be inconsistent, guarded, distracted, or struggling for many reasons. What matters is the overall pattern over time. When someone keeps hiding key parts of themselves, constantly seeks attention from outside sources, cannot stay satisfied, avoids real closeness, and repeatedly turns blame onto others, then that pattern deserves serious attention. Do not ignore your discomfort just because you cannot explain it perfectly yet. Your instincts often notice what your mind is still trying to sort out. And if any part of this feels familiar, stay with me, because the next patterns become even more revealing once you understand the hidden life many narcissists work so hard to protect. Another hidden pattern can be a secret fixation on pornography. This is often one of the least talked about habits, yet in some narcissistic personalities, it plays a much bigger role than people realize. Many keep a private and sometimes intense attachment to it, using it in ways that are carefully hidden from those closest to them. Their interest may also move into material that feels more unusual or more extreme than anyone around them would expect. The key issue here is not just private viewing, it is the secrecy, the compartmentalizing, and the double life around it. Narcissists often want to keep their public image completely clean while privately feeding desires they do not want exposed. They may indulge when a partner is away, distracted, or busy, and they may go to great lengths to erase signs of it. At first, there may be no obvious clues. Then little things begin to appear: a strange search history, hidden tabs, suspicious behavior with devices, unusual defensiveness, or a feeling that something is being concealed. For them, this can function like a hidden outlet, a place where they can feed urges without having to reveal the parts of themselves they carefully keep buried. Some may also spend time in online spaces built around adult material while acting perfectly ordinary in daily life. That split matters. It shows how much effort they put into managing appearances. They want the freedom to do what they want in secret while still being seen as controlled, decent, and beyond suspicion. A less obvious sign can be an unusual fixation on cleanliness and hygiene. On the surface, it may look like simple self-care, discipline, or just being very neat. But in some narcissists, this focus becomes excessive and strangely ritual-like. They may wash themselves repeatedly, shower several times a day, or seem overly concerned with feeling physically clean in a way that feels loaded with tension. Sometimes this can connect to hidden guilt, shame, or inner conflict after doing things they know would damage their image if exposed. The more secretive or manipulative their behavior becomes, the more strongly they may feel driven to cleanse themselves, almost as if scrubbing the body could somehow erase what the mind is carrying. Of course, this does not apply to every clean person. The point is the deeper emotional pattern behind it. What makes it even more telling is that this obsession with their own cleanliness can be paired with criticism toward a partner's hygiene, even when the partner is perfectly clean. This is where projection often shows up. Instead of facing their own discomfort, they place it onto someone else. They accuse, they nitpick, they create flaws in others so attention moves away from what is happening inside them. That kind of criticism is not really about hygiene. It is often about control, shame, and the need to unload inner tension onto another person. And when someone keeps doing that, it can slowly chip away at a partner's confidence in very painful ways. Another revealing pattern is their strong need for praise connected to intimacy. Narcissists often want to be admired in every area of a relationship, and that includes private moments. They may prefer receiving attention while showing much less interest in giving the same care back. And when they do make an effort, it is often not because they genuinely want shared closeness or mutual joy. Many times it is because they want applause. They want to be told they are amazing, unforgettable, special, the best anyone has ever had. For them, the goal is not always connection. It is ego reinforcement. It is proof that they are exceptional. That is why private moments can feel strangely performance-based around them. Everything bends back toward how they are being seen, rated, praised, or admired. If they are involved with more than one person emotionally or physically, this dynamic can become even clearer because they may grow less willing to offer real generosity or tenderness. Genuine giving requires vulnerability, and vulnerability threatens the image they work so hard to protect. So they may hold back emotionally while still expecting attention to flow toward them. Over time, this creates a one-sided atmosphere where the partner feels pressure to praise, soothe, admire, and reassure while receiving much less in return. That imbalance matters. It can train someone to focus on keeping the narcissist pleased while slowly abandoning their own needs. And that is exactly why the next pattern becomes so serious, because once self-focus grows unchecked, respect for boundaries often begins to collapse. Narcissists often show a troubling disregard for boundaries. Their sense of right and wrong can become warped around one central belief: what they want matters most. When that mindset takes over, rules, promises, agreements, and even another person's comfort can start to feel unimportant to them. They may cross lines that most people would never casually cross. They may lie, betray trust, ignore stated limits, pressure others, or place their own desires above emotional safety. What feels good in the moment can easily overpower what is fair, respectful, or ethical. This is one of the clearest danger signs because boundaries are what protect dignity, consent, trust, and emotional well-being in any relationship. When someone repeatedly steps over them, the damage goes far beyond the moment itself. It teaches the other person that their voice does not matter. It creates fear, confusion, and sometimes shame. Narcissists may excuse this behavior by acting entitled, minimizing the harm, or turning the blame back on the other person. They can act as if rules are for everyone else, not for them. That is why so many partners end up feeling emotionally used. The narcissist is focused on immediate satisfaction, and if someone gets hurt along the way, that often does not stop them. This does not mean every selfish person is a narcissist, but when disregard for limits becomes a pattern, it should never be brushed aside. Pay attention to repeated boundary crossing. Pay attention to how they react when told no. Pay attention to whether they care about impact or only about getting their way. One of the most painful outcomes of being with a narcissist is the deep loneliness that grows over time. In the beginning, they may flood the relationship with attention, affection, interest, and intensity. It can feel powerful. It can feel like you have finally met someone who truly sees you. But that stage often does not last. Once their needs have been met or the novelty begins to fade, their interest can shrink quickly. The person who once seemed so focused on you may become emotionally absent while still physically present. And that kind of loneliness is especially painful because it happens inside the relationship, not outside it. You are with someone, yet you feel alone. You are talking, yet you do not feel heard. You are trying, yet nothing seems to reach them in a lasting way. Many people stay stuck for a long time because they keep hoping the early version of the narcissist will return. They remember the charm. They remember the intensity. They remember how wanted they once felt. But often that first stage was never stable love. It was a strategy, a rush, a performance, or a mirror designed to pull you in. Once that purpose is served, the emotional emptiness begins to show. And because the shift can happen slowly, many partners do not realize how lonely they have become until they are already drained, anxious, and second-guessing themselves every day. If this is sounding familiar, take that seriously. Recognition is not weakness. It is the beginning of clarity, and clarity is what breaks the spell. There is another part that makes all of this even harder to detect. Narcissists are often very believable. They can sound thoughtful, they can appear self-aware, they can tell convincing stories about their past, their values, and the kind of person they claim to be. They may talk about being misunderstood, betrayed, hurt by ex-partners, or held to impossible standards. And because they often deliver these stories with confidence, sincerity, and just enough emotion, people around them may accept the narrative without looking deeper. This is why many intelligent, caring, emotionally aware people still get pulled in. The issue is not that they are foolish. The issue is that narcissistic behavior can be highly polished at first. The contradictions usually show up later, after trust has formed and emotional bonds have deepened. That is why it is so important not to judge only by words. Watch patterns. Watch consistency. Watch what happens when they do not get their way. When routine sets in, when boundaries are placed, when admiration drops, or when they are asked to care about someone else's needs with no reward attached. Those are the moments when the mask often slips. And once it does, what you see can be very different from the person they introduced you to at the start. Keep going, because this last stretch matters. When you put all of these patterns together, you begin to see not just isolated bad habits, but a full relational style built around image, control, self-gratification, and emotional distance. If you recognize several of these behaviors in someone close to you, try not to turn that pain against yourself. Many people blame themselves for not seeing it earlier, for missing the warning signs, or for staying too long. But narcissistic dynamics are often confusing by design. The mixture of charm and coldness, closeness and distance, praise and criticism can keep a person emotionally tangled for much longer than they ever expected. Your confusion does not mean you are weak. It often means you were dealing with someone skilled at creating emotional fog. What matters now is not how long it took you to see it. What matters is what you do once you do see it. Trust the discomfort that keeps returning. Trust the moments where something feels wrong, even if you cannot fully explain it yet. Talk to someone you trust. Step back. Get perspective. Notice whether the pattern keeps repeating no matter how many chances, conversations, or compromises happen. Real love does not require you to silence your instincts just to keep the peace. Real connection does not leave you constantly starving for emotional safety. And real care does not depend on you performing, praising, or shrinking yourself to hold someone's interest. If this message connects with your experience, let it be a wake-up call, not a source of shame. Seeing the truth clearly can be painful, but it is also the first real step toward protecting your well-being and choosing something healthier for your future.